quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. I'm Dave, 31, and yeah, I was married to Beth, 27, for 4 years. Met her back in college. I was finishing up my business degree. She was doing marketing. I still remember the first time I laid eyes on her, down at the tailgate before the homecoming game. She kept glancing at our group, acting all shy. Next thing I know, she's walking over with a couple of her friends, trying to play it cool. She pulled that accidental bump routine, but ended up spilling her drink straight down my favorite jersey. Man, I was mad for half a second, but then I saw how red her face got, stammering, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," over and over. I laughed it off. I remember saying something cheesy like, "Guess you owe me dinner now." Her eyes went wide. She looked even more flustered, kept apologizing, but she took my number anyway. We started dating after that, and honestly, those early days were something else. We'd stay up until sunrise just talking. She'd tell me all about growing up with strict religious parents, and I'd open up about losing my dad when I was 15, how I had to step up and help my mom keep our family farm going. Some nights we'd park my old truck by the edge of the hayfield and lie in the bed, staring at the stars. I'd ramble on about irrigation lines and yield per acre, stuff that should have bored her to death, but she'd just listen, even ask questions. She'd be sketching out little house designs in a notebook, dreaming of what our place might look like someday. After 2 years of that, I knew. I proposed to her at her favorite spot down by the lake, got down on one knee with a ring I'd saved months to buy. When she saw it, she broke down crying, told me that night she wanted to have my kids someday. That moment felt perfect. Fast forward, I thought I had everything lined up. A good marriage, my own farm, a future I built from nothing. Nothing was handed to me, not a single cent. I worked 70-hour weeks, took out loans, made smart choices with equipment and land, turned 40 acres of poor, worn-out soil into a productive setup that pulled in close to 300 grand last year. I was proud of that. I was proud to give Beth the life she'd talked about wanting. When we got married, we were on the same page. Kids, family, the whole works. But about a year in, she changed her tune. "Let's wait on the kids thing," she'd say, kind of nervous every time. I didn't sign up for that, but I also wasn't going to force her to be a mom if she wasn't ready, so I let it go. I shifted my focus to building a good life with her. She always talked about wanting a rustic dream, barns, wide porches, big gardens, so I found us a little farm outside of town. But let me tell you, Beth's idea of rustic was expensive. She wanted this fancy thoroughbred horse, 6 figures. Can you believe that? Because, apparently, regular horses weren't good enough for her vision. And the damn thing barely even got ridden, just stood out there in the pasture, looking majestic, while I shelled out 2 grand a month for special feed, vet care, and a trainer who treated the horse better than most people treat their kids. And it didn't stop there. She had to have imported Brahman cows because, according to her, our Herefords were too basic. Too basic. I swear to God, I nearly choked when she said that. Then there were the trucks. She'd insist on a brand new diesel every single year because, apparently, last year's truck was no longer cool enough to be seen in. It was like she thought we were living in some influencer fantasy land instead of a working farm. But you know what? I paid for all of it. As long as she was happy, I figured it was worth it. I was an idiot. Anyway, that's when things took a hard left. One day Beth's best friend, Elena, texted me out of nowhere, saying, "Dave, we need to talk. It's urgent." She asked if she could come by when Beth wasn't home. My first thought was maybe she was planning a surprise party for Beth or something. Elena and I were never exactly close. She'd been Beth's friend since high school, kind of a hot mess, if I'm honest. Always behind on bills, always posting her hustle grind on social media, but somehow never getting ahead. Elena worked as a vet tech during the day, bartended on the weekends at the Rusty Nail, just to scrape by in this tiny 1-bedroom apartment. Lately she'd been going on about this organic pet food business idea, claiming commercial food was poison and her homemade recipes had basically saved her cat's life. A couple months back she'd even asked me if I'd invest, or if I knew people who might be interested. I told her maybe, but I didn't think much of it. She was always chasing some new $1 million scheme that never got off the ground. So when she showed up that afternoon, something felt off. She texted me, 5 minutes away. "Is Beth home?" I replied, "Nope, she's out." She came through the door looking jittery, hair tied back in a messy ponytail, still wearing scrubs from the clinic. "You want some coffee?" I asked, trying to keep it casual. "No." She shook her head fast. "This won't take long." Then she dropped this thick folder on the kitchen table with a loud slap. "You need to see this," she said, voice shaky. I figured it was another loan application or some goofy business plan she wanted me to co-sign. But the second I opened it, my stomach dropped. It wasn't a business plan. It was a goddamn documentary of my marriage going straight down the toilet. Screenshots, photos, videos, hotel receipts, everything, organized in terrifying detail. Beth was cheating on me. With Dr. Jacob Carter, the town vet. Yeah, the same guy who charged me $5,000 last year when one of our horses colicked. The same guy who sent us a Christmas card with a picture of his smiling family. His wife, Kendra, the one who teaches Sunday school to the little kids and runs the annual church charity auction. Jesus Christ. I breathed, flipping through the pages, my hands shaking. There were over 70 pages of evidence. Elena had color-coded sticky notes on every page with explanations and dates. The pictures were explicit, painfully explicit. There were even timestamps showing Beth and Dr. Carter meeting up at hotels, on days she'd told me she was going to help her mom with the church fundraiser. There was even security camera footage from our own driveway, his truck pulling in barely 20 minutes after I'd left for a 3-day trip to Nebraska to check out a combine. 2 days later, there they were on camera, coming out of my house together, holding hands and kissing right by his truck like they didn't have a care in the world. It didn't stop there. Screenshots of their text messages, hundreds of them, stretching back 8 months. Can't wait till he leaves again, she'd written. Don't worry, baby, he doesn't suspect a thing. Reading that felt like getting kicked square in the chest by one of those Brahmin cows she had to have. Every time Beth claimed she was on a girl's trip, turns out she was with him. Every time I took off across state lines to look at farm equipment, they were at my house, in my bed, making a damn joke out of me. There was security footage showing his truck parked at our place overnight at least 11 different times when I was away. Then Elena pulled out a hotel receipt. Memphis. Beth told me she was on a spa weekend with Elena and 2 other friends. Funny thing is, I knew Elena was in the Bahamas that same weekend, because she'd flooded her social media with at least 50 beach selfies. So who were these other friends Beth was with? Nobody, just her and Dr. Carter, enjoying a luxury suite I'd paid for. Then it got even worse. She was pregnant. Not with my kid, with the vets. And the worst part? I was the one who took her to the doctor because I thought something was wrong, maybe a complication. Meanwhile, she was sending Carter selfies with captions like, "Your baby is making me sick today. Can't wait to tell him it's his so he'll stop asking for kids." I turned to another page, a screenshot from 3 weeks ago. Her. I think I'm going to have to tell him soon, starting to show a little. Him. What are you going to tell him? Her. That it's his, obviously. He's been wanting kids forever. He'll be so excited he won't even do the math. That nearly put me on my knees. I had to walk outside. I stood out in the yard for a solid 10 minutes, breathing like I'd just run a marathon, trying not to throw up or break something. The audacity. She was planning to pass off another man's baby as mine, all while probably still sneaking around with its real father. When I came back in, Elena was sitting there at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone like she hadn't just nuked my entire world. "How long have you known?" I managed to ask. She looked up and set her phone down. "Suspected for about 6 months. Had proof for maybe 3. Took a while to get everything." "Why now?" I asked. "Why tell me now?" Elena sighed, eyes darting anywhere but my face. "Look, I know this is messed up," she started, picking at a hangnail, "but I need to get out of this town. Start fresh. That business idea I told you about? I've got everything planned out. All I need is some capital." I just stared at her. "So you want me to invest in your business?" "Seriously?" She shook her head. "No, not like that. The problem is Beth knows I took screenshots of our conversations." "How the hell would she know that?" I demanded. Elena bit her lip. "She caught me scrolling through her phone at girls' night last month. She went to the bathroom, left it unlocked, and I took the chance to look through their messages. I took pictures with my phone." She paused, swallowing hard. "She came back early, saw me, and went ballistic. She told me Beth had threatened her, said if Elena ever breathed a word of it to me or anyone else, she'd make sure Elena regretted it. Beth told her flat out that her dad would guarantee she never worked in this county again if she showed anyone." Elena laughed, but it came out all shaky, like she didn't really find it funny. "Guess I'm screwed either way," she said. "So I figured I'd at least do one decent thing before I leave." Then she added, "Plus she's been telling everyone I tried to come on to Jacob, but he rejected me." People are actually starting to believe her. I didn't know if I bought all of Elena's side of things, but one look at those pages, the receipts, the timestamps, it was real. There was no denying that. "How the hell did you get all this?" I asked her. Elena sighed. 2 of my friends helped. We tracked Beth for months, got everything. I wanted to protect myself." "So what is it you actually want from me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "A loan? An investment? Whatever you want to call it," she said, eyes steady on mine. 50,000. I've got a solid business plan. The organic pet food market is exploding. I just need someone to believe in me." It was crazy, but in that moment, I almost respected her hustle. At least Elena was honest about what she wanted. And in her twisted way, she'd saved me. Saved me from raising another man's kid, from wasting more years on someone who clearly thought I was a clueless joke. Leave your business plan, I told her. Let me deal with this first. Then we'll talk. She nodded, letting out a relieved breath. As she walked to the door, she turned back and said, for what it's worth, I always thought you deserved better than her. Yeah, right. Like I was going to fall for that line. But I owed Elena something. She'd blown the lid off everything, whether to save her own hide or not. And I always pay my debts. After she left, I sat back down and kept scanning through the file. They'd actually made jokes about me. Real jokes. About how clueless I was, how I was busting my butt while they played house in my bed. About how convenient it was that I traveled so much for the farm, leaving them alone to screw around. Even jokes about the fancy equipment I'd invested in. His new tractor gives us more playtime. LOL, one text read. I started digging deeper, pulling up bank statements, lining up dates and charges. I found over 115 grand that I couldn't account for over the last 8 months. Cash withdrawals, random jewelry store purchases for pieces I'd never seen, weekends at a cabin rental I'd never even heard of. Then came the worst part. Screenshots of Beth's texts with her parents, Pastor Ryan and his wife, Sabrina. They knew. They'd known the whole damn time. Pastor Ryan, the so-called moral backbone of the First Baptist congregation, the biggest church in our county, 500 members strong, where everybody showed up on Sunday to polish their halos. The same Pastor Ryan who drove a brand new Cadillac Escalade bought by the church for ministry purposes. Sabrina, who headed the women's ministry and 6 different charity committees. The same woman who acted like God's personal gatekeeper. These people had spent 20 years in town talking about morals, about family values, about how the world was going to hell because nobody followed their rules. They knew their daughter was cheating on me the whole time. There were messages from Beth to her mom. Mom, I'm freaking out. Elena knows about Jacob and me. What if she tells him? And her mom, Sabrina, cool as ice. Don't worry, honey. Your father will handle it. Elena's mother needs that recommendation letter for her job at the school board. She won't risk that. Then a text from Pastor Ryan himself. We've spoken with Elena. She understands what's at stake. Just be more careful going forward. These were the same people who'd had me over for Sunday dinner every week. The same man who'd called me son. The same woman who'd looked me in the eyes and asked when I was going to make her a grandmother, all the while knowing their daughter was cheating on me, pregnant with another man's kid. I kept scrolling. It got worse. There was a conversation between Beth and her parents about what to do with the baby. Pastor Ryan, I've been thinking about your situation. I believe the best course is to let him believe the child is his for now. Later, when things settle with Jacob's situation, we can look at other options. Jacob mentioned relocating his practice, perhaps to the same area. Then, after an appropriate time, you could file for divorce. Consider it penance for your choices. The alternative is significant damage to our family's standing and my position at the church. So there it was, the whole plan laid bare. They were going to use me as a cover until Jacob could leave his wife. Let me believe I was going to be a father, raise another man's child for a year or two, then have Beth divorce me and move on with Jacob. All to protect Pastor Ryan's precious reputation and keep the big church machine rolling. I couldn't believe it. These were the same people who'd welcomed me into their family, prayed over our marriage at the wedding, handed us a big old family Bible with honor your vows before God, handwritten inside the front cover. The irony was enough to make me sick. The more I read, the more sense it made. Why her parents had been so involved in our lives lately, why they'd stop by unannounced, why they'd call Beth 3 times a day like they couldn't let her breathe. They weren't worried about her. They were managing her, managing the fallout. Every Sunday for 4 years I'd sat in those pews listening to Pastor Ryan preach about integrity, honesty, godly living. I donated money to their building fund, volunteered at their events, respected them as spiritual leaders and family. And the whole time they'd been playing me for a fool. Not just me, everyone who trusted them. By the time I finished going through all of it, I put everything carefully back in the folder and locked it in my gun safe. They thought I was some dumb farm boy. Well, they were about to learn I was a whole lot smarter than they'd ever guessed. First thing I did was call a divorce lawyer, Matthew, from 3 counties over, so nobody local would catch wind of it too soon. Then I gave myself 48 hours. Went through my normal routine, feeding the livestock, checking the irrigation, answering Beth's sweet little texts about what we'd have for dinner. I needed that time to think. And maybe, in some messed up way, to watch her lie to my face. Like a final performance. Sunday rolled around, and I sat right there at the dinner table with her parents like nothing had happened. Watching the show, letting them think I was still the gullible fool. Pastor Ryan folded his hands, gave me a big self-satisfied smile, and bowed his head. Grace, he said in that fake sincere voice of his, asking God to bless this food, in this family. The whole scene that Sunday was almost funny. Beth sitting there smiling across from me, her parents nodding along like nothing was wrong, Pastor Ryan praying over the food. If it hadn't been so sickening, it would have been a comedy sketch. Monday morning, I put my plan into motion. Told Beth I had to check on a field with irrigation issues, then drove 40 miles to a Starbucks in the next county and called Matthew from the parking lot. Matthew didn't waste time. "Do you have a prenup?" he asked right away. "No," I told him. He chuckled. "Doesn't matter. Our state isn't community property, which means she's only entitled to what she can prove she contributed to. Since you said she spent more than she ever earned with those failed online boutiques, that's going to be next to nothing. Plus, the farm's fully yours, purchased before marriage, correct?" "Yeah," I confirmed. "Good," Matthew said. "She's not getting the house, not the land, not the operation. Just debt and a baby that isn't yours." Hearing it laid out so bluntly made me want to pump my fist right there in the Starbucks parking lot. With infidelity this well documented, Matthew continued, "And the pregnancy provably not yours, we are in an excellent position. The court does not look kindly on this kind of deception." He talked me through the steps: filing temporary orders, discovery, potential settlement. "Gather anything you can," he said, "financial records, account statements, property deeds, anything showing what you owned before the marriage and what came after." I'd already started. Printed out bank statements matching Beth's hotel trips, screenshots, even recordings of a few phone calls. Totally legal since we were a one-party consent state. Matthew was practically high-fiving me over the line. "With this much proof, she's not going to get a cent beyond what the law forces you to pay," he said. "And frankly, with the paternity fraud alone, we could even go after her for fraud damages. Plus misappropriation of marital funds to finance the affair. That's on the table too. If she wanted freedom so badly, she could have it, minus my bank account." While Matthew got the ball rolling, I went ahead and moved most of our liquid cash into accounts only I could access. Not everything, but enough that if Beth tried to clean out our joint accounts, she'd come up short. Next, I called Rick, a real estate agent who knew AG properties inside and out. He came out, toured the farm, ran some numbers, and gave me a figure 30% higher than I ever expected. Turns out land values had gone through the roof, with all the commercial development popping up nearby. "It's ready to sell the second the divorce is finalized," Rick told me. That was perfect. By the time Beth figured out what I was doing, I'd be long gone. I even started browsing for new operations farther away, 500 miles, to be safe. I found a promising cattle operation in Montana with better water rights, more acreage, newer house, and a price lower than what mine would sell for. Put out some feelers, made a few calls. Nothing definite yet, but the possibilities gave me hope. Meanwhile, Beth was putting on her own show, dropping little hints about the pregnancy, turning down wine at dinner, talking about feeling nauseous in the morning, buying saltines like she was in some made-for-TV drama. One night she curled up next to me on the couch and went on about our future, how maybe it was time to revisit the kids' conversation. I nodded, smiled, played along, feeling nothing but a quiet satisfaction. Every lie she told, every syrupy smile she forced, only reminded me I was making the right move. Watching her try to sell me the role of happy dad-to-be made it easier. Matthew called with updates every few days, said the paperwork was nearly ready, and he'd found some legal precedents to strengthen our case even more. Then one evening, his voice calm but professional, he asked, "How do you want to handle the service?" Matthew asked me if I wanted to handle the service of papers privately at home or somewhere public. Said it was my call. That got me thinking. Thanksgiving. Every year Beth's family put on a massive show. Big service at her dad's church, then dinner at their place. Their huge house would be full of relatives, church members, donors, anyone with a pulse and some status. The perfect stage. I ran it through with my farm manager, Mike. He'd been with me 3 years, a rock-solid guy I trusted more than most blood relatives. "Mike," I told him, "there's a chance I'll have to leave on short notice. Could you keep things running?" He barely blinked. "Whatever you need, boss. I'll handle it." That took a load off my mind. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I met Elena at a diner a couple towns over. We slid into a booth, and I handed her an envelope with a cashier's check for $25,000. Half now, half after the dust settles. I told her, steady as I could manage. She looked down at it, swallowed hard. "You sure about this?" "I'm sure," I said. "Just show up to Thanksgiving dinner like everything's fine. You're still invited, right?" She nodded. "Sabrina called me just yesterday to confirm. I think they're scared I'll blow up the story if they don't keep me close." "Good. Get there early. Keep your head down." She nodded again. "Jacob and Kendra will be there, too. Sabrina invited them last month." "Perfect. Even better," I said. The whole cast of this circus under one roof. Couldn't have scripted it better. 2 nights before Thanksgiving, I was at my buddy Tom's garage while he tinkered with his Harley. Tom and I had been thick as thieves since high school, the only one I trusted enough to tell the whole thing to. Man, he grunted, wiping a grease-covered hand on a rag. Just serve the papers at home and be done. This show you're planning? It's nuts. I shook my head. It's not about drama, Tom. It's about consequences. These people think they can do whatever they want and walk away clean. Not this time. He sighed, looking like he wanted to argue but didn't bother. Your funeral, man. Just don't expect me to help you hide the bodies. I laughed. No bodies. Just well-deserved public humiliation. On the drive home, I felt calmer than I had in weeks. Everything was lined up. The paperwork, the process server, the timing, all set. In less than 48 hours, Beth and her family would realize their perfect scheme had a fatal flaw. Me. They'd mistaken me for some city boy who'd fold the second things got hard. But I was farm-bred. I'd seen crops fail, animals die, equipment break at the worst possible moment. You didn't whine on a farm. You cleaned it up and moved forward. That's exactly what I was going to do. And Thanksgiving? That was going to be my harvest. In our town, Thanksgiving at First Baptist was practically a second Christmas. Pastor Ryan pulled out all the stops with a giant harvest service in the morning. The church would be decked out with hay bales and corn stalks, and every big name in town would be there. Then the inner circle got the coveted invite to dinner at the pastor's house. 30, maybe 40 people squeezed into their place, Sabrina pretending she'd baked everything even though half of it was catered from some fancy spot in the city. Church elders, big donors, family, even a few people they wanted to impress. It was the same routine every year. We'd show up early to help set up, which meant I'd haul chairs and tables while Beth and her mom gossiped in the kitchen. Pastor Ryan would do a showy turkey carving and then deliver a long-winded blessing that was basically a second sermon. 3 days before Thanksgiving, I confirmed everything with Matthew. The paperwork was ready, multiple copies. Matthew had made sure everything was squared away, one set of papers for Beth, another for her parents, plus extras just in case. All of them carefully sealed in separate envelopes. Derek, the process server, was booked for 8 o'clock sharp, right when dinner would get rolling. I called Elena to lock it all down. Everyone's still expecting me there, she told me. Sabrina called yesterday to finalize the head count. Wants me there by 7:30. Perfect, I told her. Act normal. Make sure your phone's charged. She hesitated. Why? You gonna need me to do something? No, I said, but you'll want to record what happens. Trust me. The day before Thanksgiving, Beth was all over the place. Running around the kitchen with store-bought pies she'd dump into her own pie plates to pass off as homemade. Can you pick up my dress from the cleaners? She asked, frazzled. And we need to leave by 7 tomorrow to help Mom set up. No problem, I told her, taking the ticket. Anything else we need? She paused, tapping her finger on her chin. Maybe some flowers? Mom always likes when we bring flowers for the table. Sure thing, I told her. I drove into town, picked up her dress, then hit the florist. I told them I wanted their most expensive arrangement, and when the florist asked if I'd like to include a message, I just smiled. No message, I said. The flowers will speak for themselves. That night, I packed a small overnight bag and stashed it behind the seat of my truck, a couple days' worth of clothes, some emergency cash. I'd already booked a motel about 60 miles out. I could barely sleep. It felt like Christmas Eve when you're a kid, except instead of presents under a tree, I was about to drop a nuclear bomb on my cheating wife and her holier-than-thou parents. Thanksgiving morning, I was up before dawn. Put on my best suit, the one I usually reserve for weddings and funerals. Fitting, I figured. Beth spent forever getting ready. Hair, makeup, that new dress so tight around her waist it showed the faintest baby bump she thought I hadn't noticed. The service at First Baptist was the usual spectacle. 600 people crammed into the pews, Pastor Ryan working the stage like he was on a presidential campaign. He locked eyes on me while he thundered about the sacred trust between husband and wife and the bonds that tie a family together. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. God sees our hearts, he boomed. He knows our true intentions. There is no hiding from his sight. You sure about that, Pastor? After the service, it was the typical lobby scramble, handshakes, hugs, small talk. Pastor Ryan played the room like a seasoned politician, making sure the big donors and old church ladies felt seen. Sabrina fluttered around, handing out leftover bulletins and reminding folks about dinner. I spotted Elena by the coffee table, checking her phone. When she caught my eye, she gave me a tiny nod. All systems go. By 1 o'clock, people had started to filter into the house. Beth's brother and his wife, her grandmother in from the expensive retirement home, a couple of cousins, all the usual suspects. The special guests this year included a new doctor and his wife, church shopping, plus a real estate developer with visions of donating land for some youth center. By 7:45, The place was packed. People mingled with non-alcoholic drinks in hand. Baptists don't drink where other Baptists can see them. I kept my eye on the front door and the phone in my pocket, the minutes crawling. Then, at 7:55, my phone buzzed with a simple text from Derek. In position. 5 minutes. I drew a steady breath, wiped my hands on my pant leg, and started guiding people to their seats. Pastor Ryan stepped up like he did every year, trying to hush the chatter. Before we begin this wonderful meal, he began, I'd like to say a few words of thanks. Right on cue, the doorbell rang. Sabrina started to stand, but he waved her down, still wearing his turkey carving apron. No, you sit. I'm sure it's just a late arrival. He walked over to the door, voice all warm and polite at first. I'm sorry, we're in the middle of a family dinner, I heard him say. Then Derek's voice came through, crisp and professional. I'm looking for Bethany Mitchell. There was a pause, so quiet you could practically hear everyone's heartbeat. Then Pastor Ryan called back, voice tight as piano wire. Beth, there's someone here for you. All eyes turned to Beth, who looked confused, nervous, hands trembling as she stood and walked over to the doorway where her dad stood, frozen. Derek handed her the biggest envelope. These are for you, he said, calm as a surgeon. Then he held out 2 more. And these are for Ryan and Sabrina Jackson. Pastor Ryan took them automatically, like he didn't even realize what he was doing. You've been served. Have a nice day. Derek was gone before the shock even landed. Beth stood there like a statue, the envelope clutched in her shaking hands. Pastor Ryan looked like he'd seen a ghost, jaw slack, eyes wide. I leaned back in my chair, just watching. Calm. No drama. No yelling. Just facts, exactly the way they tried to keep their secrets quiet. Beth tore open her envelope first. Her face went dead white, then bright red, like someone had slapped her. She looked up at me, lips quivering. What is this? She whispered. I stayed seated, steady as a rock, and spoke loud enough for the entire table to hear. I believe the technical term is petition for dissolution of marriage. I told her, along with evidence of adultery, paternity fraud, and conspiracy to deceive. I gestured toward her parents. There's copies for your parents too, since they're named as co-conspirators. Pastor Ryan was tearing open his envelope, eyes scanning line after line, getting paler by the second. Sabrina hadn't even opened hers, just staring at me like I'd grown horns. I stood up slow, making sure every single eye was on me, then pulled out my phone. And just in case there's any doubt, I said, tapping the screen, here's a little highlight reel. I played the video, Beth and Jacob stepping out of a hotel, arms wrapped around each other, kissing in the parking lot. The timestamp was crystal clear, 2 months ago, when she'd told me she was at a marketing conference in Cincinnati. I turned the phone so everyone could see. I've got about 6 hours of this stuff, I told them, keeping my voice even. Plus the texts, the bank records, and of course the paternity test I'll be requesting for the baby she's carrying. Spoiler alert, it's not mine. Kendra, Jacob's wife, practically exploded out of her chair. What baby? She demanded, voice breaking. What is he talking about, Jacob? Jacob looked like he might throw up, mouth opening and closing like a fish on a dock. I can explain. Explain what? I cut him off, still perfectly calm. Explain how you've been screwing my wife. How you're the father of her child. How her parents helped cover the whole thing up. That's when Pastor Ryan finally found his voice, practically roaring. This is outrageous. How dare you come into my home and make these accusations? I actually laughed, couldn't help it. Accusations, I said, grinning. Pastor, you've got the proof in your hands. Page 12. If you're curious, the text messages where you told Beth to be more careful and talked about how to handle the pregnancy. I shook my head, enjoying every second. Pretty detailed for accusations, don't you think? The look on his face right then was worth every penny I'd spent. Beth was rifling through the papers, hands shaking so badly she could barely turn the pages. Where did you get all this? How did you? Then she saw Elena, standing off to the side with her phone out, calmly recording the whole meltdown. Beth's face went hard. You did this, she hissed. Elena shrugged, dead calm. Guess your dad's threats didn't work as well as you thought. Kendra had ripped Jacob's envelope out of his hands, eyes wide and wet as she scanned the pages, voice cracking. 6 months? You've been doing this for 6 months. She looked straight at Beth, whose eyes darted away like a cornered animal. Beth couldn't even look at her, just stared at the floor like it might open up and swallow her. The rest of the guests were statues, a couple of them edging toward the door like they wanted to get the hell out of this nuclear fallout. Nobody said a word. You could have heard a pin drop. I let it hang there, let the shame soak in. Then I stood up, pushed in my chair, and made sure every single person heard me. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, I said, even smiling a little. Then I turned to Beth. I'd say I hope the kid's healthy, but I'd be lying. I looked around the room, sweeping over every hypocrite in there. And for the rest of you, maybe next time don't cover up someone else's mess. My eyes locked on Pastor Ryan, who still looked like he might pass out. Especially you, Pastor. Isn't lying a sin in your book? Then I turned and walked out. Didn't look back, didn't need to. Behind me, chaos was already boiling over. I could hear Kendra screaming at Jacob, Pastor Ryan trying to restore order, Sabrina crying like a funeral wailer, someone knocking a chair over. I just kept walking out to my truck, calm as could be. By the time I hit the highway, my phone started lighting up, text after text from Beth. How could you do this? We need to talk. I'm sorry, please come back. Voicemails from her dad, Pastor Ryan, flipping between threats and desperate pleas. Even one from Sabrina, sobbing so hard I could barely make out the words. I turned the phone off, tossed it on the passenger seat, and just drove. 60 miles later, I pulled into the little motel I'd booked, shut the engine off, and let out the first real breath I'd taken in weeks. When I turned my phone back on for a second to check in with Elena, there was a text from her waiting. Holy mess, it was chaos after you left. Jacob's wife threw a gravy boat at him, caught him right in the forehead. I actually laughed out loud. When can I get the other half of my money? She texted. Check your account. I replied. Already transferred. Thanks for the show. Worth every penny, she shot back. Best Thanksgiving ever. I had to agree. I sat on that hard motel bed, cheap floral curtains half drawn, and felt lighter than I had in months. No more lies, no more fake prayers, no more playing the perfect son-in-law. Tomorrow I'd call Matthew and get rolling on the next steps. But tonight, I was going to sleep, actually sleep, for the first time in weeks, knowing I'd served up the cold dish of revenge those people so richly deserved. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.